Mr. Speaker, CBC has been reporting that the Transitional Housing Program, which is an essential part of the Drug Treatment Court, formally ends in 6 days. The success of the Drug Treatment Court goes well beyond the individual. It benefits all of society.
Yes, certainly does.
The Minister of Justice said last year he wants to expand the Drug Treatment Court, it's so good, to Western and Northern Manitoba. But today, the future of the Transitional Housing Program an essential part of the Drug Treatment Court, may be in question. Can the Premier tell the legislature today why was the Transitional Housing Program terminated when the evidence to date would suggest it's an essential part of the Drug Treatment Court program?
Mr. Speaker, I think the member for River Heights knows full well that the cut in funding for the transitional housing was perpetrated on that organization by the federal government. That was a cut that they made in that program. All the evidence suggests, as the member has indicated, that the number of people going through that program, that has reduced recidivism. The number of people returning to the justice system has gone down. It's a very cost-effective program. It's a worthy program. It's unfortunate the federal government has cut it, but it's not the first cut that they've made in the justice system. They've also canceling the band counsel program. They also canceled the program for youth in the friendship centers across the province of Manitoba, Mr. Speaker. So we've seen some very dramatic reductions in funding, which keeps people usefully occupied in the community, getting training, getting education, getting opportunities to work. Those cuts only hurt Manitobans, Mr. Speaker. They hurt Manitoba families, they hurt Manitoba youth, and it's unfortunate that the Leader of the Opposition and the Opposition Party won't stand up for Manitoba once again on this issue, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, fickle federal Conservative funding, though a disturbing reality of life today, does not provide an excuse for the NDP for failing to protect this or any other essential and effective provincial program. It has been reported that only 14% of those in the Drug Treatment Court program will reoffend, in contrast to far, far higher rates of reoffending otherwise. Why did the Premier fail in his responsibility to stand up to the federal government to ensure the transitional housing program, so essential to the work of the Drug Court, was continued?
Speaker, as the member knows, as a former member of the federal government, a former cabinet minister, that the cuts were made at the federal level. At our level, we've expanded the number of beds available for people seeking addictions. Many of those people are people that have come out of the justice system. We've expanded the amount of housing for the homeless in Manitoba, Mr. Speaker, even though the federal government's pulling out of the Project Chez Soi, or the Project at Home, Mr. Speaker, a federal program for homelessness. Federal government's ending the program for band constables. Federal government is underfunding legal aid, Mr. Speaker. The opposition seems to support all of those cuts. The Leader of the Opposition still thinks he's living in Ottawa. He should be in Manitoba, standing up for Manitoba. We will work with that organization to ensure that there's some way to continue to support people with respect to drug treatment. The Drug Treatment Court was an initiative we brought in Manitoba. It's working very well, and we will continue to support the Drug Treatment Court in the province of Manitoba, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, it is a sign of really bad management. Terrible, awful management when a good program is faced with uncertainty about its future, as this program has been and is facing. For a program like this, dealing with addictions issues, uncertainty in their difficult world already is very problematic. Manitobans are wondering why it is that this NDP can't do such a simple thing as decide this is a good provincial program and ensure it has stable, ongoing funding. How could the government have failed to stand up to the federal government and so badly manage the funding to ensure stability for this essential program?
This, unfortunately, is coming from a member who was a member of the federal cabinet that cut all the resources for family services, social services, legal aid, health care, post-secondary education, made that cut in 1995, 96 when he was in cabinet, 39% cut to those services, not only in the province of Manitoba, but across every province in the Federation. At the same time as that's happening, at the same time as the opposition...
Order, please. Order, please. subject, honourable member for River Heights.
A point of order. The Premier is so far from the fact that it is important to make some sort of correction here. The fact of the matter is that the Premier is grossly over-exaggerating the changes in budgeting, and in fact, most years in the 1990s, transfers from the federal government to the province actually went up. He should be ashamed of himself of trying to do this.
While they're debating that, while they're debating who's the biggest cutter, who has the biggest pair of scissors, we'll continue to invest in Manitoba, invest in the economy, invest in education, invest in family services. We'll look after the people of Manitoba. They can compete for who should be living in Ottawa, Mr. Speaker.